Alrighty, today we are looking at Pentathlon Jumping 1. We ran this on Thursday evening, and of course we're going to go through the map and think about things that needed attention during the walkthrough. So if we start with some reality lines, we can start to see that from 3 to 4, the tunnel was definitely on my mind. And the way this jump was built, I want to say that it was a little bit less of a backside approach from the dog's perspective. I want to say that it was like this, but we'll see on the video how severe it is. But the first thing definitely that I was thinking about was, how intense did I want to be with the turning cues at 3? I didn't want to overhandle. And also I made note that I most likely was going to be rear crossing 6 no matter how I handled 1 through 5. So there really was no rush. So whatever I chose to do at 3, the main thing that I was giving myself a mental note even before I started walking the course was to be patient. But then this course ran really nicely. The next thing that I knew might be something for me to really pay a lot of attention to is the backside at 9. For sprint, once she lands this long jump, when she jumps at an extension, there's no way that she's going to cut in and take the front side. In fact, the first thing that she's going to see and be thinking about is the weave poles. So that was definitely a mental note for me going into it. So whereas a lot of handlers chose to do a blind cross on 9, I could immediately tell that that was going to be a situation where a front cross was going to be more appropriate for sprint, because I knew that it was really likely she would be looking at the weave poles, and coming back and taking number 9 is a situation where if I just did a blind cross and ran away, she would maybe continue into the weave poles or bypass number 9. So I was definitely thinking about those things. Then I was also looking at the different handler paths that we would have for this 12, 13, 14 situation. I was in the second walkthrough, so I was able to watch quite a few dogs, quite a few handlers walking this and kind of seeing what they were thinking. And I don't actually know, but it was probably pretty even split of handlers that chose to, say, blind cross and run on the inside of this turn versus the handlers that chose to stay on the outside and stay dog on left. So it was something that I was thinking about when I was looking at the course from above, and then I ultimately made the decision when I got down there. Oops. There we go. But this course was really well built. It had really great challenges. So the 3 to 4 turn was one thing I was thinking about, the 8 to 9 turn. And then I knew that I wanted to front cross 15 and then run down this way to handle the exit line. And so that ultimately made my choice for 12, 13, 14 to send the backside of 12 from quite far and stay here and cue the throttle wrap on 14 so that I could really easily make it to my front cross on 15. Okay. Then, like I mentioned, I did choose to do a front cross at number 9. And we'll see in the video that that was a really good choice. It was really necessary. And then also from 3 to 4, I chose to just be patient. I did lead out dog on left. I showed quite a bit of motion into this, and then I hit the brakes pretty hard, decel, and I made sure to turn my chest and shoulders so that I wasn't open to this space out here. One thing that Sprint has taught me really well is that if I stay open to things, she's more likely to stay out. But when I close off my shoulder, she will turn. She will kind of narrow her focus, and she will come in on the correct line. So kind of my mental prep going into this run was, if I can be patient enough to make it through the rear cross at 6, because rear crosses are not my strength, but if I could be patient enough from 3 to 4 and then patient enough from 6 to 7, then the rest of this course I felt really, really good about. And so just having that mental reminder of be patient, handle one obstacle at a time, make sure that she's on the correct line before, running away. And we're going to see how that played out for me. So here we have the run. Like I said, I did a running start. Looking back, we saw on the map and in real life that it wasn't too tricky of like a throttle line to get to number 3. But as she's landing, I'm slowing down. I'm turning my chest into her. And I'm not completely closed off, but I'm very much facing this direction rather than this direction. So we can see that she's taking her time in turning, right? It's very true to the takeoff and landing, right? She can't turn on a dime. She has to turn in the correction stride. She is probably looking at that tunnel, hoping that I say tunnel, but when I don't, she continues to turn her head in the correct direction. That's the moment I can start to move away. And yeah, we can see here that these jumps are not completely parallel, but they're not quite so offset as they were on the map. So again, being very patient, closing my shoulder off here, making sure that I'm pointing in the direction I want her to go rather than open to the space that she's on. Now I have commitment, and that means I am free to start moving to the left. And now this is where I feel pretty confident in the rest of the course. I knew what was going to happen. I felt good in my predictions. So I started that front cross, and I predicted that really well for her, because you saw that even though she's turning, I'm cueing that front cross as she's landing the previous one. This is exactly kind of how I described it on the map. There's no way if she jumps an extension that she can get to the front side of this jump, because her correction stride will carry her to the back. And I even think she's still thinking a little bit about the weave poles, given that she was turning, but she's still so far from the takeoff point that I would like her to. So I do think she was still a little bit hopeful, but I wouldn't have seen that if I had chosen the blind cross. So that's a strategic thing about knowing your specific dog. If I had cued the blind, I wouldn't have seen this, and I wouldn't have been able to like pause and help her kind of correct for the jump. So that did kind of mess up the line a little bit, and you can see I help her correct for the tunnel. But even though it wasn't exactly how I imagined it, I still planned for that mentally, as this could be a little bit sketchy. then a really big send to the backside there so that I could stay on the outside of the wall. One thing that I definitely thought of in the walkthrough was that if I got in too close here, then my line of motion would be more in this direction over the wall, and I really needed to be able to maintain a parallel line here so that I could put pressure on the throttle wrap. So that bar came down, and we'll talk about that in a second. This bar came down for a lot of dogs, and I have a few theories. It is quite closed off, so meaning that the bar isn't visible until the dog is right on top of it. And of course, the dogs were probably turning tighter off of the tire than maybe typical for this course design because they were going into a wall. There's the photographers and people sitting back here. It's also noticeably darker under the overhang. So when we're dealing with changes in lighting, things like that can happen. So no big deal. She got the throttle wrap. I'm starting to cue the rotation for the front cross as she's landing. And I'm moving sideways out of her way of the correction stride so that she can see the weave poles. And then this is where the entire building collectively breaks down with me. This was a really unexpected fault that she popped out of the weave poles. And of course, at that point, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm so far away. I can't, at the point that this happened, I could not recall the last time that she left the weave poles early. And it was a big shock, a really big bummer. Definitely had feelings of, holy crap, we just crushed this course. And also, I'm really disappointed that happened. But that is reality that can happen. And, I moved on from it pretty quickly for that day. Was really, really pleased with her performance that day, everything that we did together. We got through the hardest parts, and just reminding myself that she's not a machine and that she is allowed to make those types of mistakes. And we'll get more into that as we continue to analyze more and more of my runs. But at the time, since this was the first time she had popped out of the weave poles in ages, like maybe 2 years, since she was like really, really new to competing, I didn't think anything of it. Like I said, there was some disappointment because we were having such a good run and we had gotten through all the things that I knew would be hard for us. And then we failed on the thing that I thought was going to be easy peasy for us. But yeah, so we just move on and we go to the next run.